Charles and I started working, I guess, in 2015. Charles mentioned to me we were having a lunch, and he was saying basically, had I looked at the Clinton Foundation financials, and I had not. And Charles at that point said that they were a complete scam. They were a criminal enterprise, and Charles had dug in deeply to them. So in 2005, 2016, I began publishing articles in WorldNet Daily at that time based on Charles's research, and it led to me writing a book in 2016 called Partners in Crime, which was about the Clintons monetizing the White House for personal gain and profit. And Charles's great strength is his ability to read financial statements and published government filings, and from that to derive an analysis of whether the company is legitimate or not legitimate. And the Clinton Foundation, Charles has maintained from the beginning, as a massive criminal fraud. And what we're going to discuss today, and I want Charles, I'm going to do this introduction so Charles has the floor for most of the discussion, and that is to present his research largely on O'Brien and the involvement of Ireland in the Clinton Foundation scam. And it's quite a story. It's shocking, actually.
All right. So in the United States, the charity sector is actually quite large. People in the United States give away $200 billion a year, roughly, each year to charities. And all told, recent statistics suggest that there's about $5.2 trillion in our charity sector. Now, the problem with that, everyone says, profit-making companies, on the left, profit-making companies are evil and not-for-profits are great. When you take a not-for-profit that doesn't have an independent board, that isn't audited, where you're not checking the numbers, that's connected to dynastic political families, Republicans, the Bushes, and the Clintons, the Obamas, both sides, who can then work their magic into the career people and the political hacks in the Department of Justice and our IRS. You have the potential to become Robin Hood in reverse, to steal from the poor and give to the rich via an unregulated, loosely controlled, money laundering operation. Beginning by 2001, around January 2001, when Bill Clinton left the White House actually in disgrace, he needed something else to do. It was tough to raise money for yet another library in a place like Little Rock. That's not a sexy cause.
Yeah.
So he got involved. He got involved with various, frankly, crooks. One of them was a gentleman called Rajat Gupta, who then was the managing partner of a gigantic consulting firm called McKinsey. And Rajat was in trouble himself. Later, he went to prison for insider trading. The two of them began. There was an earthquake in India, and everybody around the world were very generous when we see floods and earthquakes and tsunamis. Rajat and Bill got together and created an illegal charity called the American Indian Foundation. And that, in one set of disclosures, they claim that they raised $1 billion.
Wow.
But in their official books, they claim that they raised less than $100,000. And that is the essence of charity fraud. If you have a loosely controlled thing that's going after sexy causes like fighting earthquake relief or AIDS or Haiti, billions of dollars will come your way. If you've got famous people around the charity, Bill Clinton and Elton John and Princess Diana, you name it, somebody like that will attract literally billions of dollars via the internet, via wires and other ways. And if you can convince other government leaders like your Taoiseach,
yeah, very good. Well done, Charles.
Bertie Ahern, in 2003 was seduced into supporting this Clinton Foundation effort to fight HIV and AIDS. That was a completely illegal, unauthorized effort. No one has ever been able successfully to track down the amount of money that actually went to maybe towards that cause.
And I want to go over your research on how the Clintons got the idea of the HIV/AIDS. Evidently, Bill Clinton attended a rally. It was, I guess, a conference, a World AIDS conference in Barcelona, Spain in 2002, July 2002, with Nelson Mandela. And at that conference, he was asked by the Prime Minister Denzel Douglas of St. Kitts and Nevis to help the Caribbean nations establish funds for the treatment of HIV/AIDS. Now, was that conference with Mandela in 2002 the origin of this idea that the Clinton Foundation established to create a library, presidential library in Little Rock, would suddenly take on the idea of HIV/AIDS? Is that where it got started?
It actually got started before then. And it got started before then in two ways. The first way it got started before then was a lady called Sandra Thurman, Thurman, who was Bill Clinton's AIDS, one of his AIDS advisors when Bill was president. She concocted the idea of creating this crazy thing called the International AIDS Trust in January of 2001. And she convinced Mandela and Blair and Bill Clinton to be honorary chairman of this International AIDS Trust, which raised about $1 million, over 90% of which came from Bill Gates' charity in 2001, with the purpose, it was basically improperly organized, this thing. So they raised money. There is a 990 available for this International AIDS Trust. It confirms everything I just told you. There's no evidence that the International AIDS Trust ever got the tax-exempt authorization that it needs under U.S. law to function. So it was liquidated, the International AIDS Trust, in, I think, 2003. So the first attempt, you could say, to get this thing up and running was stillborn. Early in January 2002, according to a book by, you would know Joe Conason, Jerry, but I don't know him personally. Joe is a left-leaning close friend of Bill Clinton. He's written multiple articles and books about Bill Clinton, defending Bill Clinton, et cetera. He wrote a book which actually is pretty well written and entertaining called, the name will come to me, Man of the World. And it's all about, I think the subtitle is The Further Endeavors of Bill Clinton. And in that book, it came out in September, I think, or October 2016. It's a book that was written fully expecting Hillary Clinton to win. And so, unfortunately for Mr. Conason, Mr. Clinton, and many involved, it is a confession of charity fraud. There's extensive details concerning how this came to light, if you're to believe Joe Conason. In January of 2002, Ira Magaziner got a phone call from Maggie Williams, who supposedly asked Ira to help Bill Clinton think through how to make his foundation truly impactful. And out of that, Ira, at his own expense, started flying around the world, meeting with world leaders, and did a lot of work prior to the July 2002 confab, where you're right, Bill was there, Ira was there, many famous people were there, and Bill committed by July of 2002 to have his presidential foundation fight HIV/AIDS. But he was not an officer of the Clinton Foundation. He wasn't president. He wasn't of the Clinton Foundation. He had no official right to bind the Clinton Foundation to do anything, and certainly not to do things that were outside its authorized articles of incorporation. That is just bold-faced illegal activity.
Thank you. America has not beaten AIDS yet, but we are getting closer, and we remain committed to the fight and to winning it. More than ever, we need a strong advocate for people with AIDS, and of course that's why we're here today. Let me begin by reiterating our goal. We want to find a vaccine against the AIDS virus and a cure for those who have HIV infection. They have eluded researchers so far, but we are committed. The work goes on, and it will go on until we are successful. Until that day comes when HIV and AIDS no longer threaten our people, we must continue to do all we can to hit the epidemic hard with a coordinated effort of research, treatment, and prevention. When I took office, I established the Office of National AIDS Policy because America had been turning its head away from the problem. Many Americans had not come to grips with HIV and AIDS and their consequences. In our war against AIDS, the Office of National AIDS Policy plays an important role. The office is charged with coordinating all our federal policy and programs regarding AIDS. It also builds our partnerships with other levels of government and with private sector communities and organizations. Our office is charged with keeping us on track in treatment and in education, and to keep our focus on research for ways to prevent and cure this disease. An AIDS vaccine could save millions of lives around the world, and we must help those who are already infected. Make no mistake, a cure has been and always will be our very first priority. The director of this office must be an individual with a clear understanding of AIDS as a disease and as a social issue in America. Someone who knows the scientific front as well as the human center of AIDS. Someone who knows how to fight, to cut through red tape, to get the job done. I have found that person, and the woman I nominate today to fill this office, Sandy Thurman. She is no stranger to those who know this issue. She's a member of our advisory council on HIV and AIDS. She's worked on the front lines in the AIDS epidemic for more than a decade. She's been an advocate and a catalyst at the state, local, and national levels. She transformed AIDS Atlanta, the oldest and largest AIDS service organization in the South, into one of the most successful projects of its kind anywhere in the country. As executive director from 1988 to 1993, she tripled its size, beefed up its budget, and made it a direct service agency with a staff of 90 workers and 1,000 volunteers. Her experience in running a large community-based organization makes her especially well equipped to build the partnerships we need throughout our country. Where beating the AIDS epidemic will take this kind of teamwork everywhere. I am pleased that she's agreed to serve as the director of the Office of National AIDS Policy. She is passionate, she is committed, she is difficult to say no to. And I have already assured her that she will have the support and the resources she will need, including my personal support, to succeed in this all-important task. My door is open to her, and now I'd like for us to all hear what she has to say. Sandy Thurman.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President, Mr. Vice President. Your being here together is a wonderful demonstration of your support for me and the administration's commitment to ending the AIDS crisis. I am heartened that in that same spirit, the President has made a substantial effort to strengthen the Office of National AIDS Policy. We will be working to build an enhanced staff with a broad range of skills, and we will enlist those who best understand medical and treatment issues, prevention and education, social programs, discrimination, and housing to share their expertise. And I might add, that would be all of you. We have the highest level of access to the administration. I think that's evident here today. This is another reflection of the President and the Vice President's commitment to our nation's war on HIV and AIDS. This is not an epidemic of a few. This is an epidemic of us all. Hundreds of thousands of Americans have already lost their lives to AIDS. It has stolen some of our brightest and most talented friends and loved ones in the prime of their lives. And beyond our borders, millions of people struggle against the odds to live long enough to reap the benefits of a cure. We are deeply aware of the responsibility that this administration has to all Americans who are living with HIV and AIDS, and to those all around the world who turn to us for leadership and for hope.
From your two previous SARs, what would you like to see changes? And have you given up on the so-called Manhattan-style project that you promised in '92?
Well, first of all, I think if you look at, let me answer the second question first. If I had told you in 1993, in January, when I was inaugurated, that we would have 8 new AIDS drugs, 19 new drugs for AIDS-related conditions, that the number of AIDS-related deaths would be going down, and that the quality and length of life expectancy would expand as much as it had, you would think that we had put a pretty good amount of effort in here with this, with a 60% increase in our investment. So I think we're moving forward. What I would like to see is to rely on the President's Advisory Council and the AIDS Office even more heavily to mobilize even more people to have support for the work we're doing in research to find a cure, and also to do more at the grassroots level. And to tie the efforts at the community level to what we're trying to do nationally. And I think that Sandy will do a very good job of that because of her personal experience in Atlanta.